The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Getting to Know You on Colonie TV. I'm Evelyn Neale, the director of the William K. Sanford Town Library. Today we're going to talk about craft beverages, and we have John Curtin from the Albany Distillery. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, John, this has been an exciting revival of all craft beverages, and you've been involved now for how long?
Actually, today's the 3rd, right?
Today is the 3rd of March.
So today marks the 6th-year anniversary of the day we incorporated.
Excellent.
So we incorporated March 3rd of 2011. So we
couldn't have done this on a better day.
Perfect timing, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So talk to me about how you got into craft beverages.
So it was kind of an accident, really. You know, so in 2007. New York State passed the Craft Distilling Act.
Okay.
And that opened the door for businesses like mine, where before that, the annual licensing fee to operate a distillery was in the tens of thousands of dollars. So just the barrier to entry was this prohibitive licensing cost, and that was reduced from I don't know, say $15,000 or whatever it was down to $128,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a pretty dramatic discount, and the stipulation attached to that was New York State distilleries under this farm license had to be using predominantly New York State produce.
Okay.
And so the liquor authority redefined that or interpreted that as meaning 75% or more New York State grown ingredients, per product.
Okay.
So that was 2007. I was out of the area at the time. I was living in Providence then. But I was excited to hear that it passed, and I knew eventually I'd probably make my way back to Albany, and I was excited that at some point there would be a distillery in Albany. I was a big fan of spirits on the consumer end.
Okay.
I bartended my way through college and grad school, so
excellent.
I was familiar with the product. So I moved back to Albany in 2009, and still no distillery. So I assumed it was just a matter of time. And after another year or so went by and still nobody had done it, my friend and I started talking about it, and those casual conversations turned into sort of a, well, why don't we do it kind of a thing, and that just sort of snowballed, and here I am.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So your distillery is a historical. Is it a historical building, or?
It is. So the building itself was, the records from when it was built are a little bit hazy. So I have pulled some of the plans from the Hall of Records, but it was built sometime in the mid to late 18th century. Initially, it was a bunch of different buildings. There was actually the physical pumping station that pumped the water from the Hudson up to what was then the reservoir up it's now Bleecker Stadium. And,
okay, yeah.
That's the highest point in Albany. So originally it was part of the infrastructure of the pump station.
Okay.
Specifically where we are was the coal yard where they stored all the coal to fire all those steam powered pumps.
Excellent.
So the building was part of the City of Albany's water department until about the 50s, when it moved to Erie Boulevard, and it was basically just mothballed then.
Okay.
So it sat vacant for about 60 years. It was a bit of a cleanup to get it ready.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Yeah.
So we took this old shell of a building, installed plumbing, HVAC, electricity, made it occupiable, and we really like the idea of taking the existing infrastructure and sort of improving it or making use of otherwise derelict
something historical, and revitalizing it. Yeah. And you're the first distillery in Albany since Prohibition?
The first legal distillery in Albany since Prohibition. Every once in a while, we'll come across a record of a raid on a illicit distillery. There was one on Central Avenue, I think, in the in the 30s that was rated. You know, so it's always, it didn't really go away.
It's interesting though. You know, you don't think about that. You think about Prohibition as being so far.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Back there, you know, and that you guys are. When did you officially open?
So it was October 5th of 2012. So it took a little over a year and a half to get everything up and running.
Okay.
Our licensing and
Sure.
and equipment and all that stuff. So yeah, so really 4.5 years is how long we've been actually operational.
Okay.
And another interesting feature of our neighborhood, we're in Quackenbush Square,
Okay.
which, going back a couple centuries, was outside the city of Albany. It was outside the north gate of Albany, in what was then Rensselaerwick.
Yep.
And the Quackenbush family owned, you know, they were sort of landed gentry. They had a reasonable tract of land there. And in the middle of the 1700s, so, well, shortly after the British took over from the Dutch, the French and Indian War broke out.
Right.
And that led to quite a bit of military activity in this area, specifically Albany, where lots of troops were garrisoned. British troops were garrisoned, and one of their methods of compensation was a rum ration. But shortly after the garrisoning of troops in Albany, rum was banned within the city limits because you can imagine what those
Yes, what it was
that
like.
little span of time was like. Yes, so the Quackenbush family, being this like, sort of well established industrious lot that they were, and being outside the city of Albany, thought, well, the demand is there. So why not take advantage of our proximity to all these soldiers? And they opened a rum distillery in somewhere between 1758 and 1760.
Neat.
About 50 yards from where we are now.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it was a nice tie-in to.
Yeah. So you continue the history.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
do you do rum?
We do.
Okay.
We do. It's funny. It was not part of the original plan. So rum obviously is made from sugarcane, which does not grow terribly well here in sunny upstate New York, in spite of the recent weather. So that was not covered under the farm license.
Okay.
So we started off doing whiskey with New York State grown grain.
Okay.
And again, being in proximity, such close proximity to this rum distillery, we felt remiss not to do it. So we actually had to get a second license to do the rum. So we had two licenses. We had the farm license and what's now known as the craft license. Now they've been sort of consolidated. It's a whole weird legal tangle. But
Welcome to the state of New York.
Exactly. Tip of the iceberg, really, for the alcohol regulations. So not long after we opened, after we had the whiskey sort of under our belts, we started with rum. It was our next product.
Excellent. And which one do you think does?
It's hard to say. So one of the interesting things with spirits and craft spirits especially is that right now it's a trendy thing.
Yes.
But the trend is towards spirits in general and not necessarily towards individual spirits, individual categories of spirit, I should say. But there are these little mini peaks and valleys. So last year, for example, bourbon was popular.
Very popular,
The year before that, rye saw this little surge in popularity. Before that, it was gin.
Right.
And these are all sort of cycle through. And this year, rum seems to be the
hot topic.
Exactly. We actually, our rum was featured in Food and Wine magazine in the January issue. And then that got us on the Today Show as well last month.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it remains to be seen what effect or what impact that has on the rum market in general. But this year looks like hopefully the banner year for rum so far.
And how do you have to comply with small batches? Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what constitutes a small batch?
So it's limited by annual production actually. So
okay.
Again we're dealing with lots of pretty archaic systems, and we are limited to 100,000 gallons per year.
Okay.
And that's what are known as wine gallons, as opposed to proof gallons. So a wine gallon is just the total volume of spirits, the absolute volume of spirits.
Okay.
Whereas a proof gallon is the equivalent of 1 gallon of spirits at 100 proof or 50% alcohol.
Okay.
So those are the two
differentiated.
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of unclear as to whether that so the feds deal in proof gallons. The state mostly deals in wine gallons, or actually, to make it even more complicated, they deal in wine liters for the most part.
Oh, geez.
Yes, yeah. It's tons of fun. Yeah.
You need to be a scientist, a mathematician, and a lawyer.
Yeah,
in order to
my nickname is Johnny Law.
All right.
That's about 80% of what I do is figure out all this. Yeah, that's a moving target too, because since the entire industry is in such transition right now. I mean, the laws from essentially the 30s, the late 30s, early 40s, post-prohibition, they were geared towards large-scale production.
Right.
Because the distilleries that were allowed to remain open during prohibition for medicinal whiskey, which I'm sure went disproportionately to the senators of the time.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. So the four big distilleries, the ones that you would imagine, the ones that are still the four big distilleries now, more or less set the tone or the scope of the laws.
Okay.
So what's on the books now doesn't really account for businesses like mine. These very small, poorly differentiated spaces. There's rather than having the distillery building,
right, and
then the warehouse building,
right,
it's all sort of integrated.
It's all one thing.
So yeah.
Plus your tasting room and
exactly,
anything else that you provide. If you have a restaurant or
Yeah. So it's a very sort of nebulous space that we're in.
Yep.
And it's being constantly refined and redefined.
Reorganized.
Yep. Exactly. So the laws are not only the laws themselves, the statutes are changing. But the regulatory, so there's statute, which is the law,
sure,
and there's regulation, which are the rules that are set. Some of the laws specifically give rules of what we can and can't do.
Sure. And
some of the laws delegate to the regulatory body, like the Liquor Authority, for example, and gives them sort of jurisdiction to set rules within this framework.
Sure.
So there's the statutory things, there are the regulatory things.
Right.
And the statutes are being constantly sort of reinterpreted.
Sure.
The regulatory end of things is
and since they all started way back when in the 30s and 40s, with technology and all of the craft beverages that are coming on the market, everything is affecting that. And it has to be reinterpreted because they're.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be allowed to.
They're
operate.
Almost 100 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So,
yes.
It's a whole different world.
And it's a very slow process too.
Yeah.
To get. It's the Schoolhouse Rock, how Bill becomes
right,
a law.
Right.
Bill becomes a law, rather. Yeah. It's,
right.
So we've done that. We've gone to our local assembly member, so Pat Fahey, and on the assembly side, and then George Amador co-sponsored a bill.
Yep.
So Pat in the Senate and George Pat in the Assembly and George in the Senate. Went through and passed, and we got invited to the signing. That was one of many laws that have been changed in the past. But it's neat that we as businesses or organizations can get that done.
Absolutely.
Because it's such the demand is there from the consumer end, so there's a public awareness of businesses like mine.
Sure.
And the economic development piece is there.
Yep.
The agriculture support is there.
Yep.
So it ticks a lot of boxes. So now is a good time for us to get laws passed or to sort of influence.
I was going to say, have that influence on the landscape so that you can, you're really setting the path for people, in the future.
Yep.
And I think New York State and a lot of states in the U.S. are going the way of small business.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing. It's it's really nice to see, and it's nice to see the government get behind it.
It is. I mean, I've got a bit of an axe to grind, so but I wholeheartedly agree. Small businesses are great.
Well, when you're building a business and your blood, sweat, and tears are into it, it's
not literally though. Just to be clear, it's all pure spirits here.
So let's talk about local ingredients.
Sure. Yes. On that note, so right now, it's sort of delayed because all of our spirits are aging for about 2 years.
Okay.
So right now we're producing with 100% New York State grain, or 99.9% New York State grain for the whiskeys. Some of the whiskeys that are coming online in terms of the barrels being ready for bottling When we started off, we were closer to 80, 85. And the big shift that we've seen is the ancillary businesses that pop up around us, and in this case, malting. Right, so malting is a very specialized process. The broad strokes are, you take a grain, generally speaking, when you talk about malt, you're referring to malted barley specifically.
Okay.
It's like when you talk about pickles, you mean pickled cucumber.
Right.
But any vegetable can be pickled.
Sure.
And any grain can be malted.
Okay.
And malting is just a germination and toasting process.
Okay.
So when grains germinate, they release, the germ releases a protein in it, which is an enzyme that transforms all that starch into sugar.
Right.
And then if they were out in a field or whatever, that sugar is then easy food for the germ to sprout into
Sure.
and grow. In the malting process, what they do is they let that grain germinate, so the starch is all now sugar, but before it has the opportunity to actually sprout, they toast it, which essentially kills it off. Sorry. Yeah,
It's okay.
murdering all these grains.
Malts.
Yeah. But then that not only is that sugar now available for fermentation, but that enzyme is also still active, and we can use that enzyme to convert non-malted grains from starch into sugar.
Okay.
So 6 years ago, there were no malt houses in New York State.
Okay.
We had to get grains shipped from New York to Massachusetts, where it was malted there and then shipped back, or we had to buy out of state malt.
Okay.
But now there are, I think, 11 or 12.
Wow.
They're all relatively small scale. Some of those malt houses are specifically attached to breweries or distilleries.
I was
and they
going to
don't
say, but
distribute,
breweries also use malt.
Yes.
So, and that's
yes,
huge.
yeah.
Their hops and malt are
Yes,
now
yes.
two ancillary businesses that have grown up
Yep.
from.
And you're absolutely right. And in the case of malt, especially, that's very much
That's
driven
amazing,
by the brewers.
Yeah.
Same basic framework. It's the Farm Brewing Act.
Yeah.
That's pushing that. So we get sort of the side benefit of
It's a good side
piggybacking with
benefit.
that. This is a bit of a sidetrack here, but something else we've seen, more distillery specific, are cooperages opening up.
Yep.
So
I was
again,
just going to ask you where you get your barrels from.
So as of now, we are all New York State.
Excellent.
But again, the barrels that are opening, that are coming online now, are from Kentucky, Missouri,
Everywhere, yeah.
Minnesota, all over the country. But now, I think as of about 6 months ago, all the barrels that we're currently filling are all made in New York State. Again, from these cooperages that simply didn't exist
Right.
3, 4, 5 years ago.
Right.
So it's really neat to see this all sort of growing together.
Yeah. It would be interesting too to do kind of a long retrospective, because I'm sure that the cooperages were, like your building was originally part of the products that you provide, whether the cooperages were part of products of cooperages of old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the one sort of unbroken chain that we're aware of is Black Swan Cooperage. They're in Minnesota, and the woman who runs it is a 4th generation Cooper.
Awesome.
But for the most part, it's people who have either been trained as woodworkers, then have gone on to apprentice, or have they're one of our suppliers is a carpenter. He's a cabinet maker mostly, but that he over the past 2 years taught himself how to make barrels. Yeah.
And it's just an interest, but it's like history, agriculture,
Yeah.
and manufacturing all, coming together and coming alive. It's super.
Yeah.
I think it's super exciting.
It's great. I mean, and we're just a small part of, I think, a much larger trend towards locally produced goods and sort of more responsibly sourced
Yeah.
products. And it's neat to be a part of it. Like I said, and watching these ancillary businesses pop up is also sort of a self-reinforcing
Yep.
circle, right? So the more infrastructure we have in place, the
Yep.
more robust we are overall.
It's kind of that all boats rise.
Exactly.
tide
Yeah.
thing.
Rising tide. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
That's excellent. Talk to me about the trail, the Capital Craft Beverage Trail. You're very active in that.
I am. I'm the president, founding member. So we started off. But we're still very much in the growing process. So we started off, I guess, two or 3 years ago now, and it was just going to be the stretch of Broadway that includes us, Pump Station or C.H. Evans Brewing, Nine Pin, and Druthers.
Okay.
So just a little, square mile, or not even, a very, very, very narrow little band. And at that time, we were 4 of 5 producers in Albany County. The fifth one being Altamont Winery.
Yep.
And we thought, it'd be kind of inconsiderate of us to limit it to the city of Albany, and literally all we're doing is excluding Mike. So it's like, so we're like, all right, we'll make it Albany County.
Yep.
So after that, we did that for a few months, and we're like, so now we're excluding Schenectady and Troy.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, so let's add them. And then about a year after that, we're like, now we're excluding the Greater Capital District.
Sure.
So as of January, we now include I think it's 8 counties that are considered the capital region economic development zone, so designated by New York State. So so now we have sort of hard borders that are set by New York, and as of now we have I think officially 18 fully joined members.
Wow.
And probably by the end of the month, the cutoff date is next Wednesday.
Okay.
So we'll probably have another 5 or 6 added by the end of the week.
So talk to me about how this craft beverage trail works with some of the other ones that, because there's the Adirondack and but within, because I know that Victory View Vineyard, which is Greenwich.
Yeah.
They're like right out of Troy, right?
Yeah.
So is that considered capital?
It is, yeah. So
Okay.
so we do overlap with some of the other trails.
Okay.
Like, I think Adirondack extends down to Saratoga County even for some reason. But our focus is a little bit different. The Adirondack is a huge sort of very disparate locations of things. So our main foci are on tourism and collaboration. So being in such close proximity to each other, and again this greater trend towards people rediscovering sort of their own backyards. We want to give people either already living here or visiting the area a fun and sort of half educational and half recreational thing to do. And I mean, I guess that has been the focus of a lot of other trails. I mean, that's the whole idea. But something else that we are very focused on is doing events, so holding festivals and things.
Okay.
And a lot of that is because beer festivals or whatever festivals they aren't new, but they're often hosted by large national companies that just descend upon a city for a weekend or whatever, and then pick up and move elsewhere. And so part of the idea of not only producing locally and organizing locally is the phrase is "own your backyard." If there are festivals and such being held in the Capital District, we feel like we should be the ones, if not actually hosting it ourselves, we should be heavily involved. Sure. This is our neighborhood, and we're not trying to edge other people out or exclude anyone, but we do want to be sort of the voice of the Capital District and set the tone for beverages and responsible consumption. Exactly. Yes.
Absolutely. You want to you want to take part in it so that you can have a say and be represented.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, do you go down to Columbia County as well? Is that
Yep. I think it's as far as Greene County now.
Okay.
Columbia, Greene, Washington, Saratoga. Obviously, Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer.
Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer, Saratoga. Columbia.
Yeah, Saratoga, and I'm leaving 1 or 2 out, I think. Warren,
Washington.
Yes, that's it. That's the whole list.
All right, there you go. Yeah. If you work in libraries, you know this.
That's right.
Because we're all in systems. So.
Yeah, right.
But I think that the collaboration and the cooperation is awesome, both for advocacy on a state and legal level, but also for agricultural reasons, and then the ancillary pieces. It all comes together, and it makes one big community, which is healthier for everybody.
It does, and it's great. There's a lot of camaraderie. We all work together, and this may change sometime in the future, but as of right now, we really don't view each other as competition. The competition are the macros.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
So again, the rising tide lifts
Yep.
all boats metaphor really applies, especially to
Yeah.
the focus is not on one specific producer or member, but just on the idea of buying local,
Yep.
and supporting craft spirits and beverages.
Beverages,
overall. And yeah, it's great also to see. We're talking about ancillary businesses and things, and also industries that haven't gone anywhere. Again, agriculture being the big one. Now we're working with the Carey Institute on their Source New York project.
Yep.
So we're seeing not only the beverage industry, but the pre-existing agriculture is now finding a revitalized market with us. So it's nice to be able to have a sort of point of contact. As opposed to if you're a small grain farmer and you've got 6 tons of corn or whatever,
Right.
it can be pretty daunting to just open up a phone book or
Yeah.
the internet and just call individual breweries
Sure.
here.
Sure.
So part of the function of the beverage trail is one point of contact for all these producers.
Wow.
Right. So if somebody calls me and says, I have 18
this.
tons of whatever, if I don't need it, well, I've got 20 other people who
Yeah.
very well could.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's nice to have that interchange too.
That's excellent. So you're not only you're supporting each other and
But we're a community too.
Yeah.
So we all talk. We meet at least once a month and stuff. So it's neat to have that this cluster
That
of
connection.
like-minded folks and yeah.
this is so exciting. And you and I could talk for hours. If you had to tell me one thing to promote the Albany Distillery, what would you?
Boy, specifically us. That's we do make everything in small batches. It's all very. I mean, again, I've got a bit of a bias here, but it's all really high quality. We are very committed to making sure that everything we produce is stuff that we ourselves would want to enjoy on the consumer end. We're a lot of fun. We do tours every week.
Excellent.
So it's a good way to spend a Saturday afternoon. I don't know. It's tough to single us out. But I would just say in general, the craft movement really is working very hard to meet and exceed the sort of current standards that people expect in their products, and we are no exception to that.
Oh,
So.
I truly appreciate it, and I thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll definitely have to have you back.
I would love to come back.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.